Hello and welcome to the Satish Jha show. Today, speaking in Haridwar, the gate of the gods, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu talked about something very, very interesting, powerful. He said that we should get rid of Macaulay's education system, the mindset that Macaulay gave us. Now, most people in this generation, more than half the nation, probably hasn't heard of Macaulay. But those who were there when India was being free, they understood who Macaulay was, and we had lots of conversations about Macaulay. Macaulay was a lord who planned the education system of India, who influenced it, and who wrote the thesis that the best way to enslave a nation was enslave the minds. But more than that, he said, let's skill the colonized nations in the kind of things we need. And that made sense. If you're a colonizer, you will do the same thing. So what he did was right for him. What he did was not as right for the colonized nation, in this case, not just India, but many other countries as well. But that was then. Then we became free. But after being free, and 75 years after freedom, if we still talk about it, then something, horribly wrong with us. It also says the vice president was schooled in the times of Macaulay's ghost of Macaulay was still around or alive. Macaulay was long dead. But half the nation, half the population of India doesn't know of Macaulay today. They don't even know of half the presidents of India. We are trying to obliterate the memory of even Jawaharlal Nehru from their minds. So what are we talking about? Macaulay died 200 years ago. So why is the ghost of Macaulay being again brought into the conversation to begin with? And I would think it's a way to say that our education system has not met its expectations on any account. But then again, BJP has been in power for more than 25 years off and on, 8 years now, 7 years earlier, 15 years, earlier on coalition governments. They have been part of that conversation. They've been trying to change it. But I'm afraid they don't know what they want to change and how they want to change and into what. I would not comment again on NEP, which I think is a document that shows that we have yet to learn to think about how education should be understood and thought about. So that is a very separate conversation. I've had some interventions on that. And that is a never-ending conversation because until we really make a difference to our education and learning, that conversation has to remain alive. It's not going to end with just one intervention. So what about Macaulay? First thing, it shows that Vice President was educated in a time when Macaulay was a point of conversation. He also said, let's give up our colonial mindset. Colonial mindset should have been given up a long time back. Our current generation doesn't even understand colonial mindset. Those who are under 30, 35 years of age, they don't understand British mindset. They don't know, they don't talk about that. They don't even understand what colonization used to mean. Half the nation today doesn't understand that. People who are learning today, they don't have that mindset. That mindset is only in the septuagenarian, octogenarian leadership of the country. And it's in the mindset of those who are trying to change what should not be changed. In other words, the saffron brigade. And so what mindset would you abandon? Today, anybody who studies, they study something about America, something about science and technology, something they watch on the TV. They are more interested in the songs that come from Hollywood or movies come from Hollywood and songs come from the West. And it's not just true for India, it's true for every country. But don't also forget, India's colonization drive is going on in Africa and Middle East or West Asia. When you go there, you hear Indian songs. They love them, Indian movies. So if you do a good job, it will find its expression somewhere. So Bollywood movies and Indian songs, they are great export of India, and they keep Africa and West Asia quite alive and engaged with that. So that India is basically colonizing the minds of those countries too, with its music, with its, and I would still say that Bollywood has been a very important component of keeping us together as a nation. So colonial mindset has to be taken out of the minds of people who are over 30 years of age, not those who are under 30. And under 30 represent half the India. That will recede on its own. We don't have to worry about it. Now take pride in being an Indian, India's identity. What is India's identity? We haven't figured that out. Is the Sansad, Dharam Sansad man who says kill Muslims Indian identity? I'll be shocked and shamed if that was Indian identity. If is Indian identity basically wearing 10 lakh suits when you become prime minister? I'll be damned if that was Indian identity. I'm trying to figure out, I'm asking all of us, what is Indian identity? Is Indian identity my father when he wore a dhoti, or when he wore a shirt or a jacket or a coat or whatever it was? Is Indian identity the 95% poor, or the one which basically imitates the West? Where is one successful Indian who doesn't imitate the West, doesn't consume the Western stuff, doesn't think along those lines? Whether they're able to think adequately, appropriately, in a productive way or not is another matter. But show me an Indian who today can live without something which is created by the West in nearly everything that they do in their lives, barring some habits of eating and some habits which retain their power in the social structure as such. Outside of that, everything we do is primarily borrowed from, in terms of ideas, in terms of concept, in terms of product, in terms of technology, science, from the Western tradition. Now, West, as we understand, is not just America or Europe. West is anyone who thinks in terms of the idea of freedom, democracy, liberalism, and so on and so forth. All that is West. Anyone who thinks other than that is a native culture of whatever kind. So if you see it that way, well, what is the Indian identity? Let's first debate that, and debate that without throwing the power of the state to subjugate any other ideas as such. Debate as one on one, and let's see where we'll end up. Then Indianize. What is Indianization? Is it I have to wear a lungi or a dhoti or a hijab or a safa or a topi or pajama kurta, or what? What is Indianization? Is it that I have to speak the language that I was born with and nothing else? I don't know what Indianization means. And if we want to Indianize people, let's define that first. Then, they talk about Indianization being promoted mother tongue. Now think about this. When was mother tongue not promoted? What is mother tongue? We speak in our mother tongue. No matter how affluent we become at home, we talk in our mother tongue, unless we become anglicized. Now, anglicized population may be 1 or 2%, but the rest of us, the rest of the people who basically become affluent the traditional way, and or the way which doesn't really create value, that's appropriation model, like the politician who basically goes into a government, takes bribes, and suddenly he starts doing all kinds of things, and suddenly he becomes a businessman here and businessman there. There is somebody holding his money and managing it for him. Most politicians who enter as MLA and MLCs are victims of that process. If you don't become so, then you are considered a failure anyway. So if you see the political class, about 5,000 MLAs, MPs, and MLCs, etc., maybe count all of them, maybe make it 7,500, and if they change every 5 years, or if they have a lifespan of 15 to 20 years in terms of being in the government, if you see from that point of view, probably we have a community of 30, 40,000 politicians who have made money in the system in the past 75 years, maybe 50,000. Just look at their money. What kind of money? And do they speak English? They don't. So speaking mother tongue, that's what they can do, appropriate somebody else's money. Nearly everyone who creates value speaks English or Hindi, or, they speak 3 languages: mother tongue, English, and Hindi. That's what they do. So what is it about promoting mother tongue? And it's not very clear. And then don't impose a foreign language. Is English a foreign language anymore? If most of your speeches in parliament are going to be in English, yes, local legislatures have local languages. And that's a very good thing if they have that. But when it comes to connecting with the world, they have to use a language that the world understands. We can't impose our language on anybody else. If you want to talk to me, you speak my language. That's what happens, and we start speaking common language somewhere. So we should focus on the common language that connects much more than language that we were born with. If you stick to the language you're born with, you remain where you were born. Stick to language, start connecting to the language that connects, and you begin creating a larger world. And then what he's saying is that our education was confined to the elite by restricting it to English. That would have been true in 1947, 50, 60. Today, in India, up to ninth grade, education is free. But quality education is not. And quality education, we don't even know how to think about that. That's the basic challenge. If he had said, let's get ready to think about quality education, I think that would be much more productive debate as such a conversation. So we have not confined it to elites only. Quality education means affordable education of the Western variety. That's because of the pricing. It's like saying that cars can be only afforded by those who have a certain income level. So you have to improve the quality of life, improve the income levels. You have to allow them to basically go to the school. First thing you have to understand, in America, an average student goes through a school system where per child expenditure is more than 10 lakh rupees a year. In India, we handle our education system at 10,000 to 12,000 rupees per child per year. The gap of 10,000 to 10 lakhs is 1:1,000 times of gap. So what kind of quality education you're talking about? So let's be clear what we are saying. No, it's not restricted to elites. It's restricted to those who can afford it. And there is a basic cost of giving quality education. So we have to find a way to handle that. If India had invested in education from the time we became independent and quality education, we would be a different nation today. We should spend 20% of our income in generating the quality educational framework, which helps everyone become more productive. Don't forget, 50 million Indians overseas earn as much as 1,400 millions within India. And the reason for that is because they're enterprising, they're adventurous, they go out, they seek, and they acquire skills, they connect with the rest of the world, and they contribute much more. We can do the same. If we were as productive in India as Indians overseas are today, on an average, our incomes will be about 30 times more than we have today. Our economy will be the largest in the world. Today we are 2 trillion, it will be 60 trillion. America is only 25 trillion, 24 trillion. That was the past. That's what you lost on, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, because we did not invest 20% of our income in education. We didn't think of quality. That's what we got to do. So we see ourselves as inferior. I don't think anybody in India today, born in the past 30 years, who went to study anywhere, thinks of themselves inferior. We are victims of thinking we are the greatest. That is the bane of India, that we think we are great without being great, without doing anything which is worth being great. Let's not talk about yesterday. Let's talk about today. What have we done today that makes us great? Nothing. I'm waiting for an answer from anyone who is listening, anyone who can offer me something. I'll be grateful. And take it in the spirit of positive conversation. Anyone who engages with any conversation negatively is somewhere seriously psychologically challenged or already saying I'm inferior. So if anyone wants to engage in conversation, that will be a positive conversation. That way, yes, this is the way things can be seen. I like to see it this way. What's wrong with this? That's a fair question. And if we begin to talk in India in that language, we will gain a lot more than to start trolling the way. When the government of India minister starts calling press prostitutes and librandus and all this, basically means they have no ability to think about any of the issues and talk about them. So that is where the big challenge is. Those who cannot articulate the thoughts, they will find such pejorative words and try to beat anyone who tries to do something with those words. So the point is, nobody despises our own culture. We don't. We love our own culture. But what is our culture? When we talk about our culture, you can say pinnacle of our culture, we are happy with that. But what is the culture we are talking about? Many aspects of what we consider our culture, they're abominable by any standards from my point of view. Many aspects of our culture are amazingly great, we should embrace. So always say something good, worth embracing, something bad, not so good, worth sharing. Let's shed some, let's embrace some, and let's look forward. Not and stop saying that we despise our culture. We don't. We love our culture. But let's look at loving the good part of it and not every part of it, because we have moved on. So traditional wisdom is being lost. Traditional wisdom was relevant in traditional terms, traditional times. It was relevant at some point in time. It's good to know of that as an anecdote, as a history, or something as part of our growing up. But to go back to that would be disastrous. We have to think of tomorrow, always think of tomorrow. What will make us among the most contributing citizens of the world, not just our nation as such. And all this hasn't slowed down our growth. What slowed down our growth in the past 8 years, Mr. Vice President, is Saffronisation, the bigotry, tearing apart the society, basically making our politics, which was moving along, there was lots of good in that politics. Anything that tears apart people or fabric of harmony, that is a bad thing. But that's what's happened in the past 8 years. That is a bad thing. We should get away from there. We should think of how to be a world where there's peace and harmony among people. Anything that divides is shunned. Anything that unites is encouraged. That's the word you're looking for. You talk about Macaulay. Macaulay is long dead and long gone. Let's not even bring his ghost back to our conversation. Let's think in terms of how we as a nation can create an environment of learning where we can learn how to learn about what we don't know rather than just knowing what everybody knows. Let's create an environment where we begin to think about the future first, and we get into in a step with the best in the world, not just in a step with 2,000 years ago that we were. Let's forget about going back to past. Those who remember their past fondly, they probably are not going anywhere. So let's just start going somewhere so past doesn't haunt us. Thank you, sirs. Look forward to meeting you again. The next conversation about the Satish Jha show. Until then, thank you. Bye-bye.